The six-stage revolution cycle, England, China, North Korea, USA, is at stage 4. There's a cycle in political history that has overthrown monarchies, shattered empires, and replaced governments that once believed they were eternal. And right now, in 2025, the United States is following that exact same cycle movement by movement, crisis by crisis, almost as if history is forcing America down a path every collapsing regime has walked before. It's called the six-stage revolution cycle. This cycle doesn't begin with angry mobs in the street. It begins quietly inside the system as ruling elites drift further and further away from the people they govern. The government still looks powerful, institutions still function, but beneath the surface, legitimacy is bleeding out. Here's how every revolution unfolds. Stage 1. Peak confidence. The government appears strong, the ruling class is respected or feared, the identity of the nation feels unified. Stage 2. Cultural fracture. Citizens stop seeing the world the same way. Institutions split. Narratives conflict. Trust begins to erode. Stage 3. Legitimacy crisis. People obey less because they believe less. Elections lose credibility, media loses authority, society becomes us versus them. Stage 4. The spark. A scandal, an economic shock, a contested election, something happens that breaks the illusion of stability, the mask comes off, the ruling class panics. Stay firm, power, struggle. Factions arise. Radicals mobilize. Violence appears first at the edges, then spreads to the core. Stage 6. Regime change. The old order falls, sometimes replaced by freedom, sometimes by tyranny. This is exactly what destroyed the British monarchy's absolute power. This is what lifted Mao to control over China. This is what forged the iron fist of North Korea. The same 6 stages. The same sequence. Not once. Not twice. Every single time. And here's the part that should make every American pay attention. The United States is already deep into stage 4. The triggers are not subtle anymore. Mass distrust in elections. Media viewed as propaganda by both sides. Institutions openly weaponized against opponents. Protests escalating into riots. 2 political tribes that no longer see each other as countrymen. The temperature is rising fast. This is not a left versus right issue. This is not about one party winning or losing. This is about a nation that no longer agrees on who should have the power or what that power is for. America doesn't need a foreign enemy to collapse. History shows that when a nation divides internally, the revolution cycle decides the ending. England learned it. China learned it. North Korea learned it. And the United States is about to learn it unless something changes. To understand how revolutions unfold and how they destroy powers that seem unshakable, we start with the first modern example, England. In the early 1600s, England was the most stable kingdom in Europe. A proud monarchy, a national church, a powerful identity, king and country. That was stage 1 peak confidence. But underneath the pageantry, cracks were forming. 2 visions of England began to collide. The monarchy, claiming divine right and absolute authority. The Parliament and Puritans, demanding accountability and reform. Stage 2, cultural fracture. At first, both sides insisted they were the true England. Just like every country in stage 2, they believed unity would return eventually. It didn't. King Charles I doubled down, taxing without consent, punishing dissent, enforcing religious conformity. Parliament pushed back. The press spread outrage. Tension escalated. Stage 3, Legitimacy Crisis. The people no longer obeyed because the king said so. They started choosing sides. And when citizens choose sides, there's only one next step. Stage 4, the spark. In 1642, soldiers loyal to the king stormed Parliament to arrest opposing members. That moment destroyed the illusion that the king ruled for the people. Trust snapped instantly. Civil war exploded. Not on the borders. Not against foreign enemies. Neighbor against neighbor. Englishmen against Englishmen. Stage 5, power struggle. The monarchy was defeated. Charles I was executed publicly, the symbol of absolute authority severed in one swing. Stage 6, regime change. England abolished the monarchy. A new republic rose under Oliver Cromwell, fueled by revolution, but crushed by authoritarianism. When Cromwell died, chaos returned, and the monarchy was restored but weaker. The old system survived in name, but it was never the same again. The pattern England reveals: There was no foreign army invading, no economic collapse, no famine forcing rebellion. It all happened because the ruling elite stopped listening. Institutions turned on each other. Citizens lost trust. Force was used to enforce unity instead of earn it. Exactly the same pattern we see emerging in the United States today. A leader they believe abuses power. Opponents they believe are traitors. A system they believe is rigged. A public that believes only their side is legitimate. The English Civil War proves a terrifying truth. When a government loses the consent of half its people, it eventually loses control of all its people. And when that legitimacy collapses, someone else will take the power by ballots or by bullets. Next, we look at China, where the six-stage revolution cycle didn't just replace a ruler, it rebuilt an entire civilization. China was once the most sophisticated empire on earth, a nation that believed itself eternal. For 2,000 years, emperors ruled under the mandate of heaven, the divine right to govern because the heavens approved. That belief was unshakable, until it wasn't. Stage 1. Peak confidence. In the early 1800s, the Qing dynasty still commanded vast territory, a massive population, and a culture that saw outsiders as inferior. It viewed itself as the center of the world. But the world was changing, and China wasn't. Stage 2. Cultural fracture. Industrialization swept through Europe and America. China resisted change. Elites were divided. Conservatives. China is perfect. Western ideas are poison. Reformers. We must modernize or perish. A government that cannot decide what future to choose has already lost the future. Stage 3. Legitimacy crisis. Defeat after defeat against foreign powers exposed the empire's weakness. Opium wars. Loss of Hong Kong. Humiliating treaties. Rebellions that killed millions. The Qing didn't just lose battles. They lost respect. When the people stop believing the rulers can protect them, belief in the entire system dies. Stage 4. The Spark. 1911, a small uprising in Wuchang ignited nationwide rebellion. The last emperor, Puyi, a child, was forced to abdicate. The empire that ruled China for centuries collapsed in a moment. But the fall of the old system did not bring peace. It unleashed chaos. Stage 5. Power struggle. China descended into a brutal fight for control. Warlords carving up regions. Japanese invasion. Nationalists versus communists. A civil war within a civil war. A nation without a legitimate government becomes a battlefield for anyone seeking power. Stage 6. Regime change. 1949. Mao Zedong and the Communist Party seized victory. The revolution didn't just replace the ruler. It rewired society. One-party rule. Total mobilization of the population. Revolution as a permanent identity. Where England's revolution weakened monarchy, China's revolution strengthened authority to a level never seen before. The lesson from China. Revolutions don't guarantee freedom. They only guarantee change. When a government collapses under its own loss of legitimacy, someone will rebuild power, but not necessarily democratic power. China's transformation reveals a chilling truth. If a divided nation cannot agree on who should rule, the winner will be whoever is most willing to use force. Today, China believes America is entering that same crisis, and they are preparing to seize the advantage when the chaos comes. Next, we examine the darkest version of the cycle, North Korea, where revolution never ends, because the regime survives by keeping the spark burning forever. Some revolutions burn fast and collapse. Others burn forever because the rulers keep feeding the fire. North Korea is the most extreme example of the six-stage revolution cycle weaponized for survival. It began like China. Empire falls, foreign occupation, civil war, communist victory. But what followed was different from every other revolution in history. Stage 1, peak confidence, under Kim Il-sung. After the Korean War, the regime crafted a myth. North Korea was the true Korea, pure, heroic, and besieged by enemies. Citizens didn't just respect the leader, they worshipped him. Stage 2, cultural fracture, manufactured. Instead of allowing natural division, the regime created an artificial fracture. Us, loyal revolutionaries. Them, enemies everywhere. South Korea, Japan, America, and internal traitors. Fear replaced free thought. Identity became obedience. Stage 3, legitimacy crisis, silenced. Normally, when a system fails, citizens question their rulers. North Korea prevented that by closing reality. No foreign media, no internet. Punishment for independent thinking. Generational indoctrination. If people cannot access truth, they cannot question power. Stage 4. The Perpetual Spark. Revolutions usually ignite once. North Korea keeps it ignited every day. Constant military drills. Nuclear threats. Claims of invasion just hours away. Propaganda of existential danger. The regime survives by convincing everyone, without the leader, we all die. Stage 5. Power struggle inside the regime. Every transition brings purges. Kim Jong-il eliminated rivals quietly. Kim Jong-un executed them publicly. The biggest threat to dictatorship is not the people, but the loyal elite who want the throne. Stage 6. Regime survival, not change. Most revolutions end their story by replacing the old order. North Korea became the old order. It took the revolutionary ideology, juche, self-reliance, and turned it into a permanent political cage. The revolution never ends, because ending it would end the regime. The warning from Pyongyang. North Korea reveals the darkest truth about revolutions. When legitimacy collapses, power doesn't disappear, it consolidates. If a broken system is replaced, not by unity, but by paranoia, you do not get freedom. You get unquestionable control. And that brings us to today. England proved revolutions begin with division. China proved they end with whoever wins the war. North Korea proved the war never has to end. Which leaves a disturbing question. Where is the United States on this path? The answer, according to history, is stage 4. And now, we'll analyze how America entered the danger zone. For decades, America believed the revolution cycle was something that happened to other countries. Not here. Not ever. But history does not care about patriotism. It cares about patterns. And the pattern now shows America has crossed the threshold of stage 4, the spark that exposes the truth. The old unity is gone. The old legitimacy is broken. The old system is no longer trusted by the people it governs. Let's look at the stages one by one to understand how the US got here. Stay at peak confidence. The Cold War ended. The Soviet Union collapsed. America stood alone as the world's superpower. The economy was booming. Institutions were respected. Citizens believed in the American dream. That was 1991. Stage 2. Cultural fracture. Technology changed faster than society could understand it. Social media split citizens into two separate realities. One America, consuming one set of facts. Another America, consuming the exact opposite. When a nation cannot agree on truth, it can no longer agree on leadership. The motto, "We the people" faded, replaced by "We the tribe." Stage 3. Legitimacy Crisis. This is when people begin to suspect the entire system is rigged. Elections. Millions on both sides believe they are fraudulent. Whoever loses claims manipulation. Media. Each side believes the other's news is propaganda. Government agencies. FBI, IRS, DOJ, accused of targeting political enemies depending on who is speaking. Trust collapses first in the mind, then in the street. Stage 4. The spark. A single moment reveals the system has already broken. For America, it wasn't just one spark. It was multiple explosions. 2,020 protests turning into nationwide riots. The Capitol breach in 2021. Cities burning while politicians blame each other. Mass refusal to accept election results. Escalating political prosecutions of former leaders. These were not events. They were symptoms of a government people no longer believe represents them. The illusion of stability shattered. The world saw it. The enemies of the US saw it. But worst of all, Americans saw it. Now both sides believe if the other side wins, the country is over. That belief makes violence not just possible but predictable. What comes next? History says the next stage is not reconciliation. It is not healing. It is not compromise. It is stage 5, the power struggle. A direct contest for control of the system itself. Not left versus right policy debates, but who holds power, who keeps power, and who loses everything. Once day fem begins, there is no going back. England warned us. China warned us. North Korea warned us. Now America's repeating the same script, lean for lean. Next, we examine the actors preparing for the struggle. The political tribes. The deep state, the militias, the elites, the angry masses, all of them are choosing sides because they see what's coming. Revolutions aren't debates. They are fights for control. Once a nation enters stage 5, the question is no longer who is right, but who rules. America is now entering this phase. The evidence isn't hidden. It's on the news every night. It's in every election. It's in every accusation. It's in every family argument that ends with, "Hear what's wrong with the country." When citizens hate each other more than they fear foreign enemies, the revolution is already internal. The factions assembling for the struggle. Every revolutionary stage organizes power into competing camps. Here are the 5 major forces forming in the United States today. 22. The establishment elite. Politicians, corporate donors, intelligence networks, those who believe institutions must rule, no matter who votes what. Arjib, the populist movements. Millions who believe the system is corrupt and must be taken back, on both the right and the left. Trizigs, federal agencies versus elected officials. FBI, DOJ, DHS, clashing with political leaders, each side claiming they're defending democracy. Szio, media-driven tribes. Narratives become weapons. Information becomes artillery. Truth becomes a casualty. Fiverts, the angry public. Armed, distrustful, and tired of losing. When the invisible economy breaks, the visible conflict starts. This isn't politics. This is pre-war alignment. Why this stage turns violent. Democracy requires something very fragile. The losing side must accept the outcome. But in America today, the losers march on the Capitol. The winners try to put the losers in prison. Once that happens, politics becomes war by other means. Every institutional tool becomes a weapon. Impeachments, indictments, executive orders, government shutdowns, threats of secession, purges of dissenting voices. These are not normal disagreements. These are attempts to control the system itself. And both sides believe the next election won't just decide policy, it will decide who America belongs to. The stakes couldn't be higher. Stage 5 determines whether a nation reforms peacefully or erupts into open conflict. No revolution cycle has ever paused here. None. England had a war. China had decades of bloodshed. Korea split into 2 dictatorships. America's identity, e pluribus unum, out of many, one, has inverted, out of one, many. Many realities, many enemies, many futures, and only one can win. The next chapter of America's revolution will decide whether this struggle creates renewal or collapse. Stage 6 is coming, and once it arrives, the old order is gone forever. Next, we reveal the 2 possible endings: a reborn nation or a divided state that never recovers. Every revolution reaches a point where the struggle can no longer be contained. There are only 2 outcomes: a new system rises, or the nation fractures beyond repair. History gives no third option. America has now entered the branch of fate. Path 1. Renewal. This is the best version of Stage 6. It happens when a broken political order is replaced by something stronger and legitimate in the eyes of the people. Example: England after the Glorious Revolution. The monarchy lost absolute power, but Britain gained. A constitutional government. Rule of law. Foundations for a global empire. Painful transition? Yes. But it led to stability and prosperity. A renewal in America would look like election system reforms trusted by both sides, power returned to local communities, a political class that serves the people, not itself, media that informs instead of inflames, citizens disagreeing without destroying each other, a stronger, simpler, cleaner republic. Path 2. Ruin. The alternative is brutal. Example: China, after the Qing dynasty collapsed, the empire fell, but the replacement was warlords, foreign invasions, 30 years of civil war, tens of millions dead. Or North Korea, where the revolution delivered only bondage, a permanent cage built from fear. Ruin in the United States would look like secession movements already rising, gun battles between political militias, states refusing federal authority, economic freefall and currency collapse, Cities controlled by factions, not police. Elections decided by force, not votes. A nation that becomes two countries in every way except name. Which path does America choose? Here's the terrifying part. America isn't choosing at the national level. It's choosing every single day millions of choices made by millions of angry people. If distrust spreads faster than unity, ruin wins. If truth becomes whatever your side declares, ruin wins. If each election becomes a win or die scenario, ruin wins. Because revolution don't break nations. Citizens do. The point of no return. There comes a moment in every revolution where the old rules stop working, and the new rules aren't ready. That's when violence becomes a language. And America is already speaking it. Political attacks, assassination attempts, cross-country riots, armed standoffs with police, the normalization of Civil War rhetoric. It's not a future threat anymore. It's a present reality. The only thing missing is a trigger event, large enough to define a side as the enemy forever. That is what Stage 8 looks like in society. But in the revolution cycle, Stage 6 is simply called regime change. It can be peaceful, or it can be catastrophic. Next, we'll break down who wins and who loses depending on which ending America chooses. Because in a revolution, someone always rises. Revolutions aren't about ideology. They're about power, who holds it, who keeps it, and who loses everything when the shift comes. As America moves deeper into Stage 5 and towards Stage 6, winners and losers are already being chosen, though most don't realize it yet. Let's break down the factions again this time, by who benefits from which ending. If Renewal wins, who rises? E. The middle class. Reform favors normal citizens, the ones who actually keep the country functioning. Stability returns when the silent majority stands together. To work. The states and local governments. Decentralization gives power back to the places where people live, not faraway elites in Washington. 3A tree, free institutions and independent media. Truth becomes valuable again. Propagandists lose influence. Transparency grows. 4-minutes, innovation and industry. Economic confidence returns. Work matters more than political loyalty. In a renewed America, the country gets smaller, but the future gets bigger. If ruin wins, who rises? He, extremist political movements. Radicals thrive in chaos. Street armies with flags instead of uniforms. 2-1, organized crime and militias. Power collapse downward. Whoever can protect territory rules territory. Sandiud, foreign competitors. Russia, China, Iran, they win without firing a shot. America becomes a cautionary tale. Seju, the authoritarian faction. People desperate for order, except whoever can deliver it. Freedom becomes negotiable. Survival becomes everything. In a ruined America, the country gets larger in force and fear, but the future shrinks to a single command. Obey. The most important truth. Most Americans think revolutions are won by protesters. They're not. They are won by whoever controls the institutions when the chaos peaks. The courts, the intelligence agencies, the economy, the communications networks, the military. Whoever claims these pillars claims the next America. Right now, both sides believe they must take these pillars before the other side does. This is why indictments are strategic. Censorship is accelerating. Elections feel existential. Political enemies are treated like traitors. Even the military is splitting along ideological lines. Everyone sees the power shift coming. Everyone wants the throne when the dust settles. The dangerous middle, the greatest casualty of every revolution, is not the losing faction, but the ones who wanted no fight at all. The people in the center get crushed between the extremes. The moderate voice disappears first, because neither side can afford moderation when power is on the line. America is heading toward a final showdown, not between left and right, but between who defines America and who becomes a citizen of a country that no longer exists. Next, what triggers the final collapse, and how close the US is to that moment right now. Revolutions don't erupt because people are angry. People are angry for years, even decades, before anything happens. The real explosion begins when a single event forces every citizen to choose a side. No neutrality, no silence, no escape. In Stage 9 of the American story, that event hasn't happened yet. But the pressure has already passed critical levels. What does a trigger look like? History gives us clear examples. A disputed royal arrest, English Civil War. A failed reform and foreign invasion, China's collapse. A leadership crisis fueled by paranoia, North Korea's permanent tyranny. The United States has multiple candidates. Possible trigger, Hasson. A contested election. Both political tribes believe if the other wins, democracy dies. What happens when millions refuse to accept the result? State legislature revolt. Courts overwhelmed. Millions protest with weapons, not signs. The military forced to choose a commander-in-chief. This is the most likely trigger. Possible trigger, #2. A financial meltdown. When the paycheck stops, ideology becomes irrelevant. Starvation ends debate faster than any political argument. Currency crash. Mass bankruptcies. Violent crime explosion. Government unable to provide order. Revolutions often begin with empty stomachs. Possible trigger, #3. A failed assassination or successful one. A single bullet can ignite decades of fury, not because of who dies, but because of who is blamed. Accusation becomes justification. Justice becomes vengeance. Possible trigger, fire. A federal-state standoff. A governor refuses a federal order. A sheriff blocks federal agents. National Guard units fracture along party lines. A country cannot survive. When its laws depend on geography, possible trigger, #5. A black swan crisis. Grid failure. Pandemic backlash. Major terror attack. Massive border conflict. An already divided nation collapses. Under one more shock. The common threat. The trigger doesn't cause the revolution. It only reveals it. The house is already soaked in gasoline. One spark can burn the entire structure down. That is where America stands today. Stage 4 completed. Stage 5 underway. Stage 6. Waiting for the signal. When that trigger hits, institutions will choose sides. Extremists will seize opportunity. The center will vanish. The world will gasp. And history will say it was inevitable. Because revolution don't fail slowly. They fail all at once. Next comes the final chapter. What happens after the trigger? When the United States we know today no longer exists in its current form? When a superpower enters stage 6, the transformation is not gradual. It happens like a blackout. 1 second the lights are on. The next second, the world is dark and silent. There are two possibilities for America's day after. Not Republican or Democrat. Not conservative or progressive. Not red or blue. Unite or divide. Scenario A. The United States is reborn. A new system emerges, one that restores legitimacy instead of demanding obedience. A constitution updated, not abandoned. Power redistributed closer to the people. Elections restructured for trust. Media held accountable for truth. Leaders judged by results, not rhetoric. The nation learns from the collapse. The revolution becomes the reset that saves the dream. The motto changes from, "We are exceptional," to, "We must earn our future." This is the hopeful ending. Rare. Hard. But possible if unity beats fear. Scenario B. The United States fragments into blocks. The collapse becomes permanent. The map redraws itself by identity and loyalty. Likely fracture lines. Pacific Bloc California plus West Coast Industries. Southern Bloc Texas. Lead Energy Coalition. Great Lakes Bloc. Industrial Belt reborn under survival economics. Northeastern Bloc finance and globalism. Mountain states sovereignty, above all. Defense, elections, money, all split. Neighbors become foreigners. Borders appear where highways used to be, and the world loses the stabilizing force it depended on for 80 years. What the rest of the world does. China celebrates Pacific dominance secured. Russia expands Europe, forced to kneel or negotiate. Iran tightens control over the Middle East unchecked. Global trade ends as we know it. Nuclear threats are routine. Small nations scramble to choose new masters. The age of American order becomes the age of unpredictable chaos. What Americans must understand: revolution don't destroy countries. They reveal what was already broken. Division, distrust, disdain for fellow citizens with different beliefs. These are the termites inside the beams. The collapse simply shows the damage. If Americans want a nation to survive, the enemy cannot be each other. The final warning: history never punishes arrogance immediately. It waits, then strikes all at once. Every ruler who believed we are too powerful to fall ended up proving the opposite. Today, The United States stands at the same door where England, China, and Korea once stood. Behind that door is a simple truth. America will either become a new country or a cautionary tale. The revolution cycle doesn't ask permission. It only asks a price. And now, the bill has arrived.